Hi guys, welcome back to Maybe Bonsai. My name is Zin, and it has just rained today, so it's a great day to shoot videos because I don't have to wear a hat, nor do I have to put on sunscreen, so it's quite comfortable. I don't have anything to prune this week. I don't have anything to repot, so instead I'm going to take you through and do some updates on some of the trees that I haven't touched this year. So we're going to start at the Pre-Bonsai Garden. As you can see, everything is a bit overgrown. There's some fruits in here, plus trees, just a lot of stuff. I've been trying to prune these back, especially these Manitoba maples. They grow just crazy, you know. I cut these back 3 to 4 times this year already, and they're still kind of coming up, you know. They grow really tall really fast, so I have to take them back, or else they're gonna shade everything else behind them. So this is the Emery Maple that all I did this year was cut them back because I'm building the trunk line, which is way at the bottom. It's hard to see. Actually, you can't really tell where it is right now, but you know, that's nothing else but the trunk line. I'm thinking to maybe repot this next year, maybe into a bonsai soil. I have done that to one of the trees, and it survived. It just didn't have, the roots wasn't that good, so I had to do a lot of stuff to it. So I'm still thinking about if I should do that next year or the year after. This Japanese maple here is a air layer of the tree that I have in the front. It is growing really nice, and you can see that the trunk is getting thick. So I think this is ready also to be taken out of here. I don't want it to get too thick, although I could, you know, leave it in here and let it just keep growing, but I think if I leave it here for too long, it might not be easy to get it out. Plus you can see the inner nodes are quite long. So maybe it's time to take that out next year and start growing it in a bonsai pot and just let it go slowly. This here, I believe, is a crab apple. And it has, you know, grown quite a bit. It's quite thin when I got it. I collected it, you know, just randomly around the neighborhood. These grows everywhere. And it was like this thin when I started, and now the trunk is like quadruple the size, even though it's still kind of thin. But the problem with this is that every spring this gets cedar rust, because I have cedars around the crabapple, and every time I had to remove a lot of leaves from the rust, and once I remove it, it's gone. Like it's just in the beginning of the year, just that springtime where the leaves come out and then you get that rust, and then once I remove it, it doesn't come back. So you know, that's a good thing. But this also has really grown really long. I cut these back already, as you can see, this year, and then you know, there's still things growing. Here we have a ficus that I put in here, I think in July maybe, or maybe June. I did a little bit of root pruning. It was not on video, but this was one of the ficus that I had at home. It just wasn't growing that well in the pot, so I thought, I was like, okay, you know what, I'll just put it in the ground. And you know, because somebody told me that you can put this in the ground, it's gonna fly, you know, grow a lot. So it wasn't growing that much. It was healthy, it just wasn't, the growth wasn't there. So I decided to put it in the ground. I had to do a little bit of root pruning because of the amount of roots that was there. The thickness of the roots wasn't good. So I did that, and then I put it in here. It didn't do anything for about a month. I guess it was recovering, and then it just took off. Like all these leaves are mostly, you know, you can see the indoor leaves, the big ones right here, and all these new ones up here, these are all new leaves. So I would say 50% of the tree is new. So it has grown quite well in the ground, and the trunk has thickened up considerably. So yeah, that has really worked. You know, you can put this in the ground and let it go. I'm gonna get rid of this big leaf here, and it'll grow. And then obviously you have to take it out when the winter, you know, the fall comes, when it gets too cold. I'm just trying to clean this up a bit. So that has really worked. And I put this Japanese maple in here as well. I think this is the bloodgood, at least the seed was from a bloodgood tree, but you know, who knows what this is once it grows out. It has not grown too much, you know. It just, I don't know. It's alive, but I haven't really seen that much growth on it, and it could just be the seed. So I'm not sure why that didn't grow. I did not do any root pruning, so I just put it in here and let it go. But Maybe I'll leave that in here for the winter because it can handle the cold. It's in the second year, so I don't know, maybe it's too early, but I got a bunch of those, so I was thinking maybe try one outdoors and hopefully it's okay. These here are just maples. I'm sure people can tell what kind of maple this is, but I don't exactly know. It's probably a mix or something. I'm not 100% sure. Maybe a silver maple or something. Anyway, I put this in the ground. These are fairly common trees in my area, or in Ontario in general. Probably across Canada too. But you know, I'm just growing it just to thicken up the trunk and let it do whatever it does in nature. I'll probably take this out later on, much later on, when the trunk becomes thicker. And then there's another similar maple here, but this one has actually quite the big trunk here. I'm not sure if you can see that easily, but yeah, this one came when it was like this small, maybe that thin, and then it just, you know, in the ground it just grows really well. I leave these out in the winter, they're fine, so you know, they're quite hardy. These are my gooseberries, or Cape gooseberries, which produce these lanterns, which has a fruit. It's actually really good. You can buy these in the supermarkets, but they're from Colombia, and in my opinion they don't taste as good as the one that I have, which is a cultivar from China. So what else? This is a something, it's a vine, but I don't know the name of it. I got it from a member of the Bonsai Society, and then you can see there's Japanese beetles everywhere, and the leaves are kind of getting eaten. This is actually fairly recent because just a few days ago these were fine, but I guess the beetles get here and they just destroy everything. It must be, I don't know, I have a feeling this is in the grape family or genus, so the beetles are attracted to it. But if you grow this for a long time, you know, right now it's a stick, it's fairly thin, but I have seen mature versions of this, and it's really, it looks really nice. So that's why I'm growing it here. I leave this here in the winter. Outside zone 5, it's okay. So that's it for those. Let's see, this is the dwarf burning bush. I pruned this in the summer. It's a single flush tree, but this whole thing here, this is all new up to here. This is it's the second flush, I guess you can call it. But this is the only branch that grew. Everything else did not. You know, like here I cut, nothing came out. So that's normal actually. Nothing's supposed to come out, but you know, sometimes the tree is vigorous, so you or grow something else. So yeah, I'll let this go. This is just a sacrifice branch that's, you know, getting really long and thick. I'll probably cut it, you know, somewhere on the bottom eventually. This is a blue star juniper here, which I collected. Urban Yamadori. It was somebody else's lawn tree they did not want. It was kind of dying when I got it, and even after I got it, it was kind of dying because there's lots of insects on it. Before, there was tons of scale, juniper scale. They were really tough to get rid of, and I eventually had to rub every kind of branch with alcohol, and I repotted in here. I didn't touch this tree this year because it's not that healthy, even though it's got a lot of growth, you can see, but it's weak. You know, it hasn't been growing that well before because of the whole transplant. So I'm going to leave this in here probably for another year or two at least before I do anything to it. And what I find with blue star junipers is that they're, I don't know, every time I prune them, they tend to either kind of do this, nothing grows, or it dies back. I just haven't had success with blue star junipers. I'm not sure what it is. You know, I've seen people prune these and they're okay, but I don't know what the deal is here. Anyway, this is the it was previously identified as honeysuckle, but it's not. I saw this tree, the exact tree, in the nursery, and it's a spirea, or the spiry, or however you pronounce it. But that's exactly what this is. So now I know what it is. It's much easier to do stuff. This was overgrown. I cut everything back it was not on video because I just had to do it. And you know, as you can see, the leaves are coming out just, you know, a few days ago. It just rained, so a lot of the new stuff comes out, which is good. It's a clump style. This is collected from somebody's garden. It's got a ton of scars. I'm not really sure what is going to happen to this eventually, but I'm just going to keep pruning and let it ramify. I'm going to leave this outside this year. I'm going to bury the pot in the ground and just leave it outside, because every year I have this inside, it tends to leaf out very early, and there's nothing I could do because I can't move it outside at that point. So I'm kind of stuck with these kind of really tender, really soft growth indoors, and every time I take it outdoors, it doesn't matter if it's in the shade or not, the leaves will get burned, and you know, it'll regrow the rest. It's kind of annoying. I don't want to go through that again, so I'll just leave this outside, and hopefully it does well. It should, because it's a very hardy species. This is just another maple that had a huge rocky branch. It was going up about that high. I cut it back. Eventually I'll probably cut it back to here. Yeah, to there, and then, you know, just go from there. But yeah, this is just a collected tree, which earlier on, I collected this early on because I didn't have any trees. Obviously, if I had the choice, I might not have collected this now, because it's just, you know, there's not too much character to it, even though it does have a natural curve and stuff. But anyway, I'm glad I have it. The trunk is starting to get in the old bark, or older bark. You know, it's looking okay, so yeah. So here on the bench, we have this English ivy, which I have a video on it before, which I repotted in here, but I haven't done anything to it since, because it grows quite slowly indoors. It'll elongate these vines really easily indoors, but it doesn't get thickened up that much. But this summer I took it outside, and it has kind of, you know, I noticed it's quite thick compared to what it was before. It's a triple trunk, I guess you can call it. There's one main trunk here, there's side, and then the main splits into two. There's some branches here, like this here, crossing branch, I'll probably take off eventually, but I'm just letting it grow. I'm gonna let it grow for a bit and take them back when it gets thicker. So yeah, the roots, it's developing. It's got some characters now, so it's nice. It's very easy to grow. You know, this is an indoor plant basically. Anyone can grow this, but I think if I just keep going, it'll turn into something decent. So that's that. And then here there's more English ivies. This one is, I'm growing as a cascade. You know, they're just house plants that you can turn into bonsais, which if you grow long enough, you'll get a thick trunk just like any tree. Down here is the Snow Queen Hibiscus. I have not done anything to this year. The trunk here, it's quite thick now. Actually, this is much thicker than when comparing to the beginning of the year. I initially wanted to do this as a cascade, but I guess when I repotted this in here, it was not a very good repotting position, because it cannot cascade down because of the pot is here. It's kind of growing into a raft style by itself, but I still want to do the cascade. All I have to do is repot this, you know, so that this can kind of hang, and I'll adjust the angle. Hopefully I can make that happen. Maybe I can even do exposed roots so that I can have more trunk for the cascade. You can see the roots there. It's coming along. So I don't want to repot it this year, because I just repotted this last year. I think it's too soon. Yeah, it's too soon. I just, you know, that's how I feel anyway. So I'll leave this in here. I'll probably try to repot it next year or something, or make more sense. Here we have a Ficus Benjamina. This was a root over rock, or a mineral rock. I haven't touched it this year. It has grown, but not that well. You know, I don't know, maybe it's just the roots are growing in, or it's because the roots, a lot of these are exposed, so they're growing down. but it has thickened up the trunk. It just, I don't know, I feel like there hasn't been that many leaves that has come out, so I'm not worried about it. I just you know, I'm just not sure why it hasn't grown that much leaves. Anyway, the Brazilian rain tree that I pruned before, I think it was off camera, but anyway, it's doing nicely outside here. These are all newer leaves because I pruned them back. This is the silk tree, again growing really well. I kind of scraped the dirt back, or the soil back, and you can see that it has a roof layer at the bottom. Some moss on it too. So yeah, it's getting a flare at the bottom. It's almost too wide. I thought it would, you know, taper better, but right now it's just like a kind of like a pie at the bottom. And then all of a sudden it starts going up, but I'm sure that's going to get better over time. But yeah, that's quite exciting. I didn't know I would get roof litter this fast. I had this tree for 2 years I would say. And then back there is a cutting from this guy, this one here, growing quite well in the outdoors. Here, this is the crystal forest. I removed the moss, as you can see, because it was because when it was indoors I couldn't water it that much. It would rot so easily, so I removed the moss, and then all the moss dried out. And then once you get outdoors, I was afraid to water it, so then the moss just stayed dried. I just took it off. I just think it wasn't working with this particular planting. Probably sand or rock or some kind of other landscape material would be better for this kind of stuff. And I put a rock here just to prop this up because it was having trouble staying up due to this root. It had a root coming this way, like a really thick one, that it did not look good. So I cut that off, and what do you know, the rest of the tree kind of starts tipping, even though it has roots on the other side. I guess the roots on the other side was not too strong, so they started tipping, and I had to put a rock there to stop it from tipping. So eventually I think I have to repot this, because when I put these trees in, most of them was just cuttings. There's no roots. So now that they have roots, I could probably repot it and position it better. It seems that a lot of these are too shallow because they're all kind of pushing themselves out of the soil. But regardless of that, the trees are growing really well. You can see all the new leaves coming out. I left this in the shade for most of the summer, but now I moved it to the bench where it has full sun, because I think these new leaves are used to the full sun, so it's okay. And you can see the old ones are burnt. Even in the shade they get burnt, right? They're all yellow. But yeah, it's growing. It's not getting as much shade as I thought it would with all these leaves, but maybe later on, you know, once it gets more branches, it'll eventually create a nice shady area, and then the moss can stay green perhaps. And I do start watering every day now, because the sun is quite hot, and I find that when the sun is hot, it's okay to water every day. It'll just, you know, it'll be okay. So yeah, no problem with that. This is just a money tree cutting that I have. It's growing outdoors. You know, everywhere you go, they'll tell you this, you know, put this in the shade, put it indoors in the indirect sunlight, but it can grow in full sun. It's just the leaves have to get used to it, and that's how it takes. This is the crown of thorns Nigel gave me, doing really well. Nice flowers on it, nice growth. So yeah, there's a few of those, so I could do something with that later. This ficus is the one that Nigel and I pruned together in December. I have not pruned this since. Lots of leaves coming in. You know, it's starting to get kind of full again. Probably can get taken back again soon. So I'll probably go to Nigel's to do that again, so we can kind of continue our last work session on it. This larch, I cut the top back. I repotted this year in the spring. I have not touched this since, because I needed this to recover. I need this to get more roots, because I did some root pruning. It hasn't grown that well this season because of all the work I did, but you can see there's new growth on the tips, so that's good, which means that it's probably settling down. so I'm not too worried about those. This is a Kotone Aster that I had. It had tons of leaves everywhere and just lots of I would say character on the trunk, but I had to prune a lot of these old stubs back just to make it flatter and let it heal. So I took a lot of branch back, and you know what's left here is what you see, and I'll just let this regrow slower. It had tons of branches everywhere. I could not control the growth, so I cut lots of things back, and hopefully they'll heal, and they should, because I cut some things back before last year and it's already healing, so I think it's okay. What else? This is the big jade here, growing really well. I haven't pruned this, I haven't done anything to it. I'm just letting it grow over the season. I think I'll prune it when I take it indoors in probably late October. So yeah, doing really well. All the wounds that I cut, as you can see, it's healing quite nicely. There's like a layer of thick bark. Here something weird happened to this. There's 4 Japanese maple seedlings in here. They're all growing quite nicely, and then this one, all of a sudden, it just dried up. I don't think I watered it differently, because they're in the same pot. I watered a pot just like anything else, and this one just suddenly died back for unknown reasons. I'm not sure if it's dead or not, because it just happened recently. So I'm still watering it, of course, because I have to water everything else, and maybe it'll come back, maybe it won't, I don't know. But you know, if it just dies for no reason, it's probably just a seed. I don't know, not strong enough. So that's that. All these guys are growing nicely. Even some of the green dissectum shaped leaves ones are coming out quite nicely. So there's obviously way too many in here, so, and I'm sure next season not all of them will make it. I'm sure some of them will die back, just like the ones I had before, but we'll see, because everything else is looking pretty good in here so far. Let's see what else. We'll go over to the other side of the bench. The Downey Willow, I have not had an update this year, I don't think. Mainly because this was repotted in the spring, where I did root pruning, I did everything, and I put it in this bigger pot, and I haven't pruned it, so it's growing. I'm just going to leave it to let it grow and establish itself this year, and then next year I'm going to start some pruning because it will need it. And then I've noticed some of the branches isn't that strong. There's like leaves kind of going a different color, you know, especially look from the top. Like these guys are kind of brownish, right, kind of going yellowy brown, and these ones here are more healthy. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe it's because the branch is too low, I'm not 100% sure. So anyway, it's going to lose the leaves in the fall, and hopefully by next year, once the tree has established itself, it's going to come back quite strong, hopefully. The hibiscus that I did not have an update this year, this summer at least, is growing quite well. I repotted this into this round pot. I think that was the last video, and I did root pruning, and it really hasn't grown that much, as much as I thought. I mean, there's obviously, these are new leaves here, the tips, but it just hasn't grown that much, because I guess the repot kind of really set it back, which is okay, you know. Now that it has established itself, I'm sure it's gonna grow a lot soon. And then you can see the leaves are kind of getting yellowy tone on it. I'm not really sure why that is. Probably partially burnt because they were all indoor leaves, quite large. So I'm not really worried about it. I just thought it would have more foliage by now, but it doesn't. That's a lavender, and you can see how much has grown since the pruning just a few weeks ago. All these guys are just elongating. They're just coming out really strong, which is good. That's really good. I'll leave those on this year, and then next year I'll do some pruning. And then here is the maple, the sugar maple, which I pruned earlier this year, and basically everywhere has kind of sprung up branches, leaves, looking really good. I did a very light wiring on this branch so that it's more horizontal on this side, but everything else is just clip and grow. I am quite excited for this tree. It's got a nice trunk, and the branch structure that I kind of fixed or pruned this year is looking pretty well. It's got some branches in the right places, you know. So yeah, I'm quite excited for this tree. It's looking really good, even though it's not your, you know, particular popular bonsai species because the leaves are massive. But you know, I think if you have a good tree, it'll look good no matter what. Plus, this is more of a Canadian species because it grows here a lot. And I can grow this to a bigger tree so that the leaves wouldn't look so big. It will look smaller in comparison. This is just the oak that I collected before. It's growing nicely. I did, again, light wiring, just shaping it a bit. I think this actually might be cutting in almost. Yeah, it's probably cutting in now, so I probably have to remove that. But yeah, just a little bit of shaping in the early stages. So I think hopefully it'll turn out to be good later on. So yeah, let's see. This juniper I have not touched this year. I just pinched back some of the growth, but it's starting to get a lot of things. And then I'm not 100% sure what I'm going to do with this because it had a branch. The trunk actually extended like this, and I cut the whole trunk off. I kind of split it. It didn't really work out that well. Now we got this weird thing here, weird branches, you know, I don't know what to do with. So maybe, I don't know, I have to do something, maybe chop most of this down or something, make it into something else. I don't know. I'm just letting it grow for now. I don't really know what to do with this. This is the Emery Maple that I repotted this year, and the root base is actually at the bottom, but it had these big roots at this area. I didn't know what to do with this, so I did cut them all, and I don't know, maybe I planted this too shallow or something. I don't honestly remember what happened, but obviously you can see the result. It's not that good. I'm still happy that this is alive actually, because it was not looking very good after I did it, because I did tons of root pruning, and the roots bark was coming off quite easily on the tree, and I was kind of worried, you know, it might not survive, but it did survive. So, but I don't know what kind of roots that we're looking at the bottom, so we'll have to deal with that later on, like in a year or 2 years probably at least. So yeah, here is the Natal plum that I have not done anything to this year, but you know, you can see it's looking decent. Need more branching. There's branchings up there, but need more branching maybe on the left branch there and the right. It's I guess a semi-cascade right now. It's growing slowly, but it is growing. These are all new leaves. Those are all new leaves. This pot, it's quite small, so I guess the slow growth is okay. But other than that, it's looking quite healthy. Getting a lot of these roots at the base there, looking good. And this here is a oak that Nigel gave me. It's the one with the smaller leaves. I don't remember what he called it, but this was the smallest one that he had. It was the last one, so I had to have it. So I was like, yeah, whatever, you know, small is okay. I'll grow it in time. But yeah, it's growing really well, so looking good. And the pomegranate, there's a feather in there, which I pruned at Nigel's place. You can see that when I pruned it in Nigel's video, it was quite bare, but it has come back with tons of vigor. It's full again. You know, you can always prune it back again. But I'm not going to do that this year. I'm just going to leave it, and then next year I'll do another pruning. Here is the willow leaf ficus with the really weird spiral roots that had a tree before. I cut the tree down to try to root it as a cutting. It didn't work. It was my bad. That was a terrible decision on my part. And then while it was indoors before the summer, there were a ton of these buds everywhere, which never shut up leaves. It was just buds that looked like they were going to come up, but they never did. As soon as I moved this outdoors, they all just came out right away. Like the sun just basically boosted its growth by tenfolds. So now I got this whole clump of stuff that's coming out from the base. I'm just going to let it grow until they get bigger. It's going to be a clump style because I don't see this being anything else at this point. But I'm just glad that it made it. You know, I thought it was going to die or something. Let me just turn it back. So yeah, that's that. This is the Dwarf Shaflera. It's finally kind of coming out with leaves after I defoliated the entire thing. There's a branch growing at the bottom, which hopefully, well, that's probably too low, but I mean, I'm still glad that it has a branch at the bottom, because right now it's quite one-dimensional. You know, there's two branches on this plane and that's it. It's low, but maybe it'll work. I don't know, we'll see. Probably won't work. Let's see, these are cuttings of the variegated dwarf jade or Portulacaria afra from before. I just left it in here to root because they were a little bit thick and they had weird branching, so I thought I'd keep them. They have all grown, and you can see how small the leaves are in the full sun. That's the one that I pruned just last week, I believe. It hasn't done much now because it's just pruned. This is a juniper or false cypress. Is that what it's called? I think. Again, I repotted this in this bonsai soil this year, and which is why I have not done anything to it. You can see there's a lot of new growth, these newer greener leaves. I'm surprised how well this recovered, because I did do some root pruning on here as well, and I was a little bit worried, to be honest, because I did take off a lot of root, but it did not skip a beat. You know, it came back. It did not brown or anything like that, and now it's growing again. It is very full right now, and it could definitely use a prune, but I'm not going to this year because I repotted this year. I just don't think it's a good idea to do anything else. I need to let it sit and recover before I do anything else to it. Here you got a couple of Korean maples. They have not done much since I bought them in the show, in the Toronto Bonsai Society show, which is fine. I'm not really looking for anything this year. Just make sure they're alive. And let's go here. There's a ficus here, right there. I believe this is a Benjamina, 2 little leaves, or maybe it's a medium size, I'm not sure, but I think it's a little size because they're quite small. And these ones here is the indoor leaves. They're quite big. It has grown quite a bit. As you can see, there's lots of newer green leaves. Again, I did some light wiring, just bending this branch to be more flat. And then, you know, I have this branch here, which I took the wires off already. I'm a bit worried about this branch because I had a different branch coming out the back, I think, and it died back. And this one here is not looking that good because I haven't seen new growth coming out of here. It's just maintaining itself, and you can see the rest of the tree is growing. So, you know, it's kind of worrisome because the vigor is going to the top, which is natural. This branch is fine, you know, the vigor is going there, but maybe it's because this is too flat. Is that why? Maybe that's why it's not growing so well. I'm not sure, but my plan is to kind of prune the top a bit, at least the tips of some of these branches off, and hopefully it'll send the energy to this branch and you know, give it some life. I don't want that to die back, but if that branch dies back, I probably have to either remove the very bottom branch, which is quite low actually, so it might get removed eventually anyway. But if that one dies back, I will have to remove this one because it would just look out of place because it's way too low. And then the front, I think it's about there, around that area, so it'd be the front of the tree. But it has, you know, it's doing really well. The leaf size, you can't get any better. It's tiny. they curl up. I think that's just because the sun is too much, so the leaves curls up. So yeah, that's quite healthy. I think that concludes all the trees. I'm just getting a light head rush right now. Okay, so anyway, I'm pretty sure I went through everything that I haven't done before this year. So hopefully you had a good look at all the trees and all the updates. So I think that's it for today. It's been half an hour or more. I didn't think it would take this long, but it did. Anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.